Hello everyone, welcome back to BSS Academy Bengaluru. This is daily news analysis session. We'll be discussing some important topics or important articles from UPSC prelims, mains as well as interview perspective. So, the first article for 23rd July 2025 is from the front page of the Hindu, which talks about a very sensitive issue, that is Supreme Court on eatery rules along the Kanwar Yatra route. In the previous news analysis, we discussed about this Kanwar Yatra. What is this Kanwar Yatra? It is a yatra by Shiva devotees. Okay, Shiva devotees are Hindus who go to important places where the Ganga river flows, and they collect the water from Ganga Jal or Pavitra Jal from that river, and then they bring back to the local Shiva temples. Local Shiva temples or 12 Jyotirlingas are important other Shiva temples, and they will take a very treacherous journey on the, like, they will start walking, and then maybe now there are changes also. Now they are also going for vehicles, etc. But the point here is they will go to the Ganga river and then take the Ganga Jal and bring it back to Lord Shiva. That is the yatra here. However, last year there was an issue with respect to this Kanwar Yatra. Last year what happened was there was a directory by the UP government that along the route of Kanwar Yatra, all the shops should display their name, whether the shop belongs to Hindu or whether the shop belongs to Muslim, etc. etc. kind of notifications were drawn by UP government. In that time, Supreme Court struck down that government notification and said that it is against secular fabric of Government of India or Constitution of India. Now there has been another kind of issue. We'll see what is it. Supreme Court addressed a plea challenging a requirement for eateries along the Kanwar Yatra route to display QR codes, owner names and registration details. The petitioners argued that the rule could alienate certain communities and affect freedom of choice and livelihood. So there were certain petitioners, they again went against the directory by the different governments. The different governments wanted to display QR codes, owner name and registration details outside of the shops. And the petitioner said that if you do this, it is going to marginalize a particular community. So it is against secular fabric and also against choice of livelihood. Now, the key highlights from the hearing was, what the Supreme Court's advice was, there is a freedom of consumer choice. Justice Sundaresh said that consumer is the king. So the court emphasized that right of Kanwariyas to choose where and what to eat. So in a gist or in a nutshell, what the court said that the directory of the government of each state is fine. They have to display, it is fine, and it is not affecting the secular fabric here, because the consumer is the king concept is primacy here. Next, raised concerns over eateries changing menus from non-veg to veg during the yatra for business gains. So this is one aspect which the Supreme Court looked into. Last year what happened was, many of the non-veg hotels, non-vegetarian hotels or restaurants along the Kanwar Yatra decided to change their non-veg hotel into vegetarian hotel or vegetarian restaurant just for the period of yatras. So during this period of yatra, the Kanwariyas have to follow strict diet, etc. So there are certain codes which they have to follow, that is eating vegetarian food and drinking water only in certain places, etc. etc. Now if you are going to change non-vegetarian to vegetarian only for the period of that time, only for the period of yatra, obviously you are doing it for the business or political gains. It is going to come in conflict with the code of conduct of Kanwariyas. The court also stressed on transparency for consumers to make informed decisions. So display the names, display the QR codes. It is up to the Kanwariyas or it is up to the devotees on which shop they could buy or which shop they want to do. So there are also certain issues highlighted here on food habits and alienation. The court referred to Karl Marx's quote that religion is the opium of people. Court observed how food habits can alienate groups and must be handled with care and sensitivity to diversity. However, the petition argued that he was the A.M. Singhvi and Hifza Ahmadi, and they were the petitioners. They argued that state action may ostracize minoritarian establishments. Owner identity has no link to food served. Disclosure could foster identity politics. Obviously, Kanwariyas being the majorly Hindus, they would most of the times avoid going to the Muslim restaurants. So it is not. It is going to ostracize a minority-led or minority-run restaurants. Then choice must not become a tool for exclusion or surveillance. So they also have put certain valid arguments. That is, yes, the consumer should have a choice. However, this choice should not lead to identity politics, and this choice should not lead to exclusion or surveillance of on a particular community. Next, the state's justification. The argument from the state side was that it cited central laws requiring food license display for health and safety. They said that though we are doing it during the period of Kanvaratra, our main aim is not to alienate in a particular community. Our aim is to maintain health and safety. The state argued that it's about public health and transparency and not about discrimination. So, we will see the constitutional and ethical dimensions as well. Under the Constitution, in Article 19, there is a freedom of occupation and trade for everyone, and mandating QR codes and names could be seen as certain restrictions on the freedom of business unless justified reasonably. So this is a valid argument here. And under Article 21, there is right to privacy. Now, naming the owners and employees publicly could violate privacy without compelling public interest. There has to be a public interest which is larger than the need for the privacy. Only then this has to be taken forward. And under the ethics, there is a need for balancing rights. The balancing rights or the balancing values is here is one is consumer autonomy and the other right is minority rights. There should be a proper balance. Another one is transparency from the consumer end and discrimination from the hotel or owner ends. That has to be taken care as well. And ethical governance must avoid any ulterior motives in the regulation. There shouldn't be any ulterior motives such as promoting identity politics, such as promoting discrimination. Okay, so very important article. You can quote these in some essays or in ethical issues as well. So the current status here is the court observed that Tuesday marked the end of Kanvar Yatra, hence chose not to deliver judgment but stressed that there is a need for equitable approach without hurting the sentiments of an individual. Okay, next. Second article for the day is from the Hindu paper itself. It is an editorial. The editorial talks about China, India, and the conflict over Buddhism. The core argument here is while attention focus on India, China, maritime and military rivalry, there is a deeper, subtle conflict is unfolding in the Himalayas. One centered not on the territory or the trade, but on spiritual legitimacy and cultural influence. Buddhism has become a tool of geopolitical power with the monasteries, reincarnations, and religious institutions at the heart of contest. Okay, when we talk about India and China, most of the times we talk about the discrepancy or divergence with respect to trade, commerce, strategic interest for defense, etc. etc. However, the article brings like our notice into some other issues, that is beyond these hardcore issues of defense, etc. etc. There is a subtle changes that is happening in Himalayas, that is with respect to Buddhism. Okay, so understand these keywords you can use in your answer. That is, there is a question on spiritual legitimacy and cultural influence. We will see and understand what the themes here is. So first is how the Buddhism is used as a statecraft. China's strategy, it dominates Tibetan Buddhism through state sanctioned lamas and religious databases and surveillance. Okay, in Buddhism there are many kinds of Buddhism, majorly Mahayana, Hinayana and Tibetan Buddhism, which is also called as Vajrayana. Okay, so this Mahayana, which focuses on idolatry, okay, idolatry or like worshipping Buddha in a form of image. So this is mainly found in Southeast Asia, Japan and Korea. The second is Hinayana. Hinayana, it is focused on more of a conservative nature. It focuses on or worshipping symbols rather than the face of Buddha or idolatry. And finally, this was the Vajrayana, which is followed in Tibetan. This is a kind of tantric Buddhism. Many people say that here there is a worship of not only Buddha, along with Buddha, there is a worship of Taras as well. Who are the Taras? Taras are equivalent to Apsaras in Hindu mythology. That these Taras are wives of Buddha. So, kind of irony here, that is Buddha wanted to get from his like lively or humanly interest or humanly pleasures and wanted to achieve or attain like salvation, and they are asking like Buddha's wives etc being worshipped at the like heaven now. So that is different thing. So Tibetan Buddhism is worshipped in China, mainly Tibet. So there was a 2007 law that is only the Chinese state can approve living Buddhas, that is who are the incarnations of Buddha or Bodhisattvas. That the government has the responsibility. Government should say who is the new Buddha. Okay, the government is taking, or the Chinese government is taking into hand who is the god now. Next, reframes Buddhism as a national asset, using it for domestic control as well as external influence. This is the strategy of China, meaning similar to its communism model, where it has control over economy, society, etc., etc. It is also implementing this communism model on Buddhism. It is controlling Buddhism. Now, with respect to India's approach, India historically has provided asylum to Dalai Lama since 1959, giving it a moral stature. Only recently, it began promoting Buddhist diplomacy through Nalanda Circuit, Lumbini development, etc., etc. India had huge potential to promote Buddhism, but it had not been able to do so far. Now, they are promoting through Buddhist diplomacy. It lacks China's centralized vision and offers or efforts are fragmented and reactive. So this is how both India and China are dealing with Buddhism. Next, the major issue what is happening between India and China, or majorly India and Tibet, is the succession of the crisis of Dalai Lama. Okay, so Dalai Lama is considered as a reincarnation of Buddha, one of the reincarnation of Tibetan Buddhism. So every year, or when the old Dalai Lama dies, new Dalai Lama succession has to happen. So now the new Dalai Lama, or the Dalai Lama at the present, who is present in India, is saying that a new Dalai Lama will be announced by Dalai Lama itself. But China is opposing this. China is saying that the new Dalai Lama has to be recognized by China, and it has to be done by the traditions which are followed in ancient China. So we will say what is this? The 14th Dalai Lama, who is now 40, plans to reincarnate outside Chinese control, that is mainly or possibly in India. China will likely install a rival Dalai Lama using the golden arm system. So this is a golden arm system which was practiced in the ancient He or Shi dynasty of China. Next, this will create schism, that is there will be break in the Buddhism, forcing Himalayan communities to pick sides. India backed Dalai Lama or China backed Dalai Lama. Okay, so impact will be, it is going to result in realignment of spiritual and political loyalties in Ladakh, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Nepal and Bhutan. Most of these areas around India and Indian subcontinent follow Tibetan Buddhism. So there is a choice for them, whether to follow Dalai Lama or Indian Dalai Lama, or whether to follow China-backed Dalai Lama. So monasteries have been used as an instrument of influence. For example, in Ladakh and Tawang Valley, Buddhist identity is closely tied to nationalist sentiment. That is, they are majorly pro-India in nature. Next, monasteries are not just spiritual, they influence local politics, education, as well as provide a certain identity. A shift in the monastic allegiance can alter the control in a particular region without a single shot fired. There is no weapons used here, but still the allegiance can be changed. So internal religious disputes has a geopolitical leverages. This is not the first time that has happened. That is in Karmapa disputes, that is two rival claimants, India and China, support different sides. and in Dorje Shoden sect, that is shunned by Dalai Lama, and but it is embraced by China to weaken exile authority. There is a Shangden sect, which is not supported by Dalai Lama, but China is using it as a tool to curb or weaken the exile authority, that is Dalai Lama. These schisms offer openings for strategic manipulation by the external actors. Now we have to wait and see who has the power to manipulate more. The geopolitical implications will be that China's goal is to convert Buddhism into an arm of foreign policy in the Himalayan belt and South Asia. And India's opportunities, it can leverage its civilizational roots in Buddhism to forge regional cultural ties, deepen people to people diplomacy with the Buddhist majority countries, strengthen bonds with Himalayan populations, especially where the territorial disputes persist. This way, India can not only address the border issues, it can also improve its relation with the neighboring countries or the countries where the Buddhism is predominantly practiced. Next, however, there is a risk, that is, if India fails to act, then China's soft power will fill the void, certainly redrawing spiritual and cultural influence maps across Asia. Now, whatever the influence that India has over the Buddhism, it has to take use and it has to make the best out of its potential. If India fails to do that, then China obviously is going to fill that void because it is a strong soft power. So, critical analysis here is, one is the strategic importance, that is the contest over Buddhist leaders and loyalty will shape borderland identities and religious diplomacy in Southeast Asia. Next, the soft power versus hard power. There is the issue of the inaccessible Himalayan terrains. So, in Himalayan terrains which is inaccessible, in these areas, soft power is almost equal to hard power. That is, in soft powers, the monasteries' allegiance could decide which nation controls the local mindsets. Next, the policy challenges for India. There is a need to transition from symbolic gesture to strategic coalition. That is, India should develop coherent Buddhist diplomacy policy involving interministerial cooperation between Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Cultures, as well as Buddhist scholars and institutions like monasteries. With this, India can act as just a mere observer to enabler or actor. Next, third article is about realities behind the global experiment of remote work. It discusses about work from home or remote work culture in present India, not only in India but around the globe. The remote work promise versus the reality. That is, under the global aspiration, workers worldwide desire more flexibility and autonomy. Obviously, there are but practice lacks in aspiration. That is, actual remote work days remain well below the ideal expectations. That is 1.27 to 2.6 days globally in 2024. And the cultural and structural obstacles is traditional work culture, poor infrastructure, and the managerial reluctance hinder implementation. So, we will see what are the insights out of this survey. Recently, a survey was conducted and there is a regional disparities. Global survey of working arrangements by the Stanford and Info Institute or IFO Institute, that data from 16,000 educated workers across 40 countries was collected. Under that, there was geographical variations. That is, in Western nations, there is 1.6 remote days per week. In Asia, there is only 1.1 days despite the higher aspirations, mainly due to the presenteeism and small living spaces and unreliable internet. So, it varies from internal as well external factors. Externally, it is the reliable internet that is the issue, and internally, it is the presenteeism. In India or in South Asian countries, there is less emphasis given on the actual work done, but more emphasis given on how many hours you are in the office. That is called as presenteeism. Africa and Latin America, there is mid-range participation in the remote work. So, the European countries or the Western countries are performing well in this remote days. There is also gender patterns in remote work. That is, women, especially mothers, desire more remote work. That is, average of 3 days or 2.66 days per week. mainly driven by care responsibilities, that is taking care of the family in the sense child and the father, like child and the father and other family members, and also doing the work, that is dual responsibility. And persistent inequality, that is remote work for women often reflects necessity and not empowerment. However, the men's motivations differ. Obviously, they are not going to go through the childbirth. So, there is emphasis on autonomy, hobbies, and relief from office monotony, not caregiving. So, the demands differentiate here. In European anomaly, that is, men report slightly more remote days than the women. So, that is one of the anomaly that is found in this survey. So, during the COVID-19 and the post-COVID-19, immediately after the post-COVID-19, the remote working culture was on high. Okay, you could have seen in the Bengaluru itself. So in Bengaluru, which is the IT hub of India, most of the people who are working in Bengaluru, due to the COVID-19 and due to post-COVID-19, they were working in their home only. Many of the people had work from home culture and they were working from the home, from the comfort of their home. But as soon as the COVID-19 was over and the restrictions were lifted, the companies started demanding their employees to come back to the work. So we can see that there is a demand or declining demand for declining in remote work. One is, under this, the employer concerns is that there is fear of reduced collaboration, team cohesion, innovation, and oversight. So their concern here is certain aspects of the work culture cannot be brought through online mode, such as building the team cohesion, innovation, and oversight. It has to happen in a physical space only. It cannot happen in a virtual world. And then structural constraints, that is, many industries lack systems for remote effectiveness. And the health impacts, in physical, higher rates of back pain, headaches, and eye strain. And in mental, there is isolation, blurred work-life boundaries, and burnout. So these are certain health impacts which have been found in the survey. The hybrid work, which is a balanced path, it is a best compromise. That is combining office presence with home flexibility, and also it needs institutional support, that is ergonomic and mental health safeguards at home, so that you are not feeling lonely, so that you are not feeling burnout, and digital disconnection protocols to prevent burnout. Seeing the screen throughout the day in your home, it is going to lead to burnout. So there is a need of digital disconnection and investment in remote infrastructure. Okay, not only where the main office is located, but also areas where the majority of the employees are also located. Next, there is a need for policy and infrastructure imperative. That is, the role of government here is providing universal broadband and digital access, and home office upgrades stipends, and then legally enforced remote work standards. If there are certain legally enforced remote work standards, then it is going to help the employers as well as the employees to get the work from home. Then, especially urgent in developing countries where the infrastructure lacks, majorly such as India. So the broader societal inflections or implications is, there is a gender equality or gender equity challenge. Remote work alone won't fix unequal domestic burdens. Shifting male identity, that is, autonomy is now a dominant motivator, which is a sign of evolving work values. Next is deeper reflections, that is, the remote work model reflects tensions between freedom and control, trust and oversight, and autonomy and loneliness. So these values have to be balanced. So in conclusion, remote work is not just a technological adjustment, but it is also a social mirror revealing deeper fractures in the workplace culture, gender roles, and institutional imagination. Fine. Fourth article is about issues with respect to universities in India. It is again an editorial which was presented in the Hindu. It talks about universities everywhere in India are in crisis. The major reasons provided under this article is, first one is majorly due to political interference in the higher education. It gives example of USA, that is, federal funding cuts to Harvard and pressures on Ivy League universities reflect growing politicization. So these Ivy League universities and the Harvard are some of the top most universities, not only in the USA but also in world. Now the government of USA is cutting down the funding to these universities because they think that the university is against their interest. So the example, the like actions taken by example is the affirmative action was rolled back in 2023 and institutions coerced into adopting narrow definitions of anti-Semitism, resignations, donor backlash, and silencing of dissent on race, gender, and foreign policy was seen throughout universities. In India, populist attacks on public universities, labeling them as anti-national. This is too slightly political in nature, so take it with a pinch of or salt of reality. The budget cuts, police surveillance, and ideological curriculum mandates. That is, example, the Indian knowledge systems. There is an issue with respect to promoting Indian knowledge systems. Next example here is the South Asian University pressured a faculty member due to a student citing Noam Chomsky. Okay. Next, the global pattern in suppression here is the suppression on the universities is present in throughout the world. First in Europe and Asia, that is Hungary expelled Central European universities, Turkey dismissed dissenting academics, and Australia vetoed humanities project under the national interest. So everywhere there is a issue with respect to universities and also curtailing the freedom of universities. And in Latin America and Gulf, Brazil, Philippines defunded social sciences, and Gulf countries enforce strict boundaries on religion, gender, and labor topics in universities. So there is a lesser freedom now. Next, rise of neoliberal academia. That is one of the reasons why the governments are focusing on improving the surveillance. That is, universities are increasingly functioning as corporate entities. Emphasize on ranking, employability, and brand value. Subjects like sociology and feminist values or studies are devalued because there is a lesser employability opportunities there. Faculty reduced just to service provider, and students are just treated as a customers. Then there is a decline of academic freedom as well. According to the Academic Freedom Index by VDEM, there is decline in 34 countries, including the democracies. Autonomy, freedom of research, and campus integrity are at their lowest since the 1980s. And the suppression undermines society's capacity to address critical global issues. So we are seeing a different trend now. Till 1980, if this is a graph, till 1980 the freedom was on the up. Then post 1980s, now the freedom is going down. Okay. Next, the pathways for resistance and renewal. The current efforts here is need of legal collectives, alumni support, student coalitions, defending open discourse, reclaiming campus as democratic commons, and call to action. That is, universities must resist political control and recover their public mission. Faculty engagement, donor integrity, and governance reforms are essential. So this is a very important article with respect to universities, and you can use these quotes or use these points in your ethics or essay, or if there is a question on university as well. Next, so prelims pointer. So first prelims pointer is MiG-21 fighter jets to retire in September 2025. We will see what is this MiG-21 fighter jets. The Indian Air Force will formally retire the MiG-21 Bison jets in September 2025. A ceremonial send-off is planned at Chandigarh Air Base, attended by veteran pilots. Tejas Mk-1A will replace the outgoing jets in a significant step towards indigenization of defense equipments. So about MiG-21, it is of Soviet origin, single-engine supersonic fighter and interceptor. It was first introduced or inducted in 1963 in India, and there are over 700 aircrafts inducted and many assembled in HAL under the license. The operational legacy, it was the backbone of IAF until the mid 2000s, and it played a crucial role in 1965 and 75 wars over Pakistan, in Kargil war, and in Balakot airstrikes, that is Abhinandan Vartaman shot down at Pakistan shot down a Pakistani F-16 using MiG-21. Next, Operation Sindhu. Though the aircraft is very old, they have been used in effectively in recent skirmishes or in the wars in India. The current status is there are 2 more remaining squadrons with the 36 aircrafts. 23 squadrons is Panthers and number 3 squadron is Cobras, not necessary. But challenges and controversies with respect to MiG-21 have been a cause of concern. That is, there is a rising accidents and safety. It is nicknamed as a flying coffin due to high crash rates or crash rates. So 170 pilots and 40 civilians have lost their lives in MiG-21 related accidents in India. So very high rate of fatality here. And also there is a aging fleets here. Airframe and technology are severely outdated. Maintenance and safety issues have grown over time. Recently, if you see the newspapers, every once in 2 weeks there will be a crash of any jet, and most of the times the jet would be this MiG-21. So now there is a need for replacement. The future roadmap is indigenization, replacing MiG-21 with HAL made Mk1A, which is an indigenously developed aircraft. Next, modernization of IAF, ongoing efforts to induct Rafale Su-30 Mk1, Tejas Mk1A and future AMCA, and maintain strategic edge amidst a two-front threat from China and Pakistan. There is a necessity because Pakistan is backed by both China as well as USA, and it has advanced F-36 and also advanced J-31, I guess, which is the 6th generation fighter jet which was indigenously developed by China. So India has to be very careful with respect to its superiority in airfare wars. Next, final article, that is, extreme weather may harm Indian cities and cause billions of dollars in losses, according to a new World Bank report. That is, there was a joint World Bank and Government of India report warns that India's urban future is at risk due to extreme climate events. Using resilient infrastructure planning to avoid economic and human cost is necessary now. The key highlights of the report is it projects the urban growth projection. India's urban population is nearly doubled by 2050, reaching around 951 million. 144 million new homes will be indeed needed by 2070. And climate threats, increasing urban heat island effect. City centers experiencing 3 to 4 degree higher temperatures than the surrounding regions because of the bricks and because of the concrete infrastructure. Then heat waves and reduced water absorption are intensifying the flood risks as well. And the city studied was 24 state cities including Chennai, Indore, Delhi, Lucknow, Surat and Thiruvananthapuram were studied. There was an infrastructure gap found in all the cities. That is, over 50% of the urban infrastructure for 2050 is yet to be built, presenting a critical opportunity for sustainable planning. So this is how you convert challenges into opportunities. Major recommendation under the article was focus on green and resilient infrastructure, integrate housing, transport and municipal services with the climate resilience, urban climate mitigation, that is, expand green spaces and promote cool roofs, regulate storm water and install early warning systems. Then targeting vulnerable populations, tailored programs for the urban poor who are most at the risk from heat and floods. Then case example here is cities already initiating localized actions to improve climate resilience, and not detailed in the article but mentioned in, okay, it is ongoing. We have to see which are the cities in coming articles. So significance for India is the economic risk. Without timely action, India could face billions in economic losses due to climate related urban disruptions. And job creation, there is a positive here. The urban centers are expected to contribute 70% of the new jobs by 2030. Climate shocks can derail this trajectory. So very important that India takes this as a priority. Then global relevance aligns with India's Sustainable Development Goals 11, that is sustainable cities and communities, and climate adaptation goals under the Paris Agreement. That is, nationally determined contributions or panchamitra. So that is why this article becomes very important. The data here is very important. The data is being provided. So population increase, the doubling of by 2050, and the jobs 70% by 2030. All these things are very important, and also the issues are also going to be very important with respect to your mains. So note down these points and use it in your mains answers. So with this, I will end the video. Jai Hind.